And you found us. It's Emil and the Swish. Everyone's got to have a swish. Every talk show has to have that. Hey, how you doing? It's Emil Guillermo. Emil, Amok to you. This is my secret podcast, a legitimately secret podcast that no one knows about. If you found us, this is my takes on all things considerable. Yes, there are a lot of things going on today. Joe Biden thought he had put everything to rest. He had gotten his Democrats in line, all the leaders, the Black Caucus, the Congressional Democratic Caucus. He had Ted Lieu and Pete Aguilar up there yesterday saying, hey, we're in line. They had a caucus meeting. Even AOC was in line. Everyone thought, okay, the White House we're ready to announce the inflection point. Joe Biden likes to say, we've reached the inflection. No, we haven't. We haven't reached the inflection point. The inflection point being the liftoff into the next sphere, the next level of the campaign. Either the curve goes upward or the curve goes downward. We're stuck in this anxiety that people have about whether or not Joe Biden should be the nominee or if he should get out. And it's getting more interesting when all these other folks who represent, Nancy Pelosi is the mother that everyone cried to. Oh, they won't let us talk. They won't let us talk about the down ballots. And so even after Joe Biden has said he's the guy, he's going to be the guy, Nancy Pelosi, in her very diplomatic and political way, gets out there this morning on MSNBC and says, well, it's up to Joe. But she didn't say, thank goodness Joe's made the decision. She made it sound like Joe hadn't made the decision, but he had. So that was a political hint to, let's keep this debate open, Joe. It's your decision. I mean, this is why Pelosi's the master. She said, we're not through counting votes. The votes haven't been cast amongst the Democrats. There's still some dissension, and even though Biden wants to end the debate, he can't. So check out my column on ALDEF, the Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund. On the ALDEF blog, I talk all about this idea of the inflection point and whose anxiety matters. Biden's anxiety, clearly he doesn't have any about running. He wants to run. Or your anxiety. Oh, we have, or not maybe me, but a lot of people have anxiety over whether or not President Biden should be the guy for the next 4 years. And like I said, everyone thought that, the Democrats are in line. Everyone was saying, yeah. Even those who at first had doubts. The debate is not over. Nancy Pelosi kept it open. And then soon after, New York Times prints an op-ed piece by George Clooney. He's an actor, but he's in legitimate showbiz versus politics, which is the showbiz for ugly people. And now that George Clooney is saying in an op-ed piece that, maybe Biden's not the guy. He's not the guy in 2020. He's not the Joe effing Biden that he was early on. He is. Clooney cast doubts about Biden's ability to do the job and even had suggestions about what should happen now. An open convention. I don't necessarily agree with that. But there's some people with some thoughts about, let's go to the convention, make Biden the nominee, and then maybe something will happen and he'll have to drop out. Is that less messy than going to the convention now? Because the way the Democrats wanted to have it is, we got our guy. He's the president. He's done a great job. But past results are not a guarantee of future performance, right? Just like the stock market. So it's complex for the Democrats. Check out my column because I'm taking a philosophical view after meeting for the first time in 5 years my 100-year-old English teacher. It was quite a meeting that we had over the weekend. Like, there must have been 100 former students there to vet her, to give her a rousing 100-year birthday party. But she's fully self-aware. She's also 19 years older than Biden. But Biden doesn't seem to have that self-awareness that he's not the man that he once was. Still, as I say in my column, if I were fighting this as Biden, I'd say, why is everyone going ageist on me? It's not a crime to grow old in America, is it? I mean, people want to make a criminal fact about Biden's age. Aging's not a crime. If it were, he'd have 81 felony counts. But the other guy has 34 real felony counts guilty against him, which still makes Biden a better candidate than the other guy. But I mean, the whole idea about something's wrong with Biden is this idea that an older person couldn't do the job, an older person who's qualified. And all this talk about, get them in unscripted, spontaneous situations and let's see. Well, that's one way. But I think it's cruel if people keep saying, take away the teleprompters. Let him speak without teleprompters. If Biden couldn't walk, would you say, take away his wheelchair, take away his cane? Let's see him walk. That's cruel. That's cruel to say that. I think Nancy Pelosi sort of was trying to be very political, saying he's earned the nomination. It's his choice what to do, knowing full well he's already said, I want to run. But she said, let him make the decision. And what Pelosi was doing was not shutting the door to the debate. So we're going to have debate. See my column on the ALDEF blog, aaldef.org/blog, and I talk more about whose anxiety level are we more concerned with. Joe Biden doesn't have any anxiety about this. He's the guy running. Everyone else has anxiety about Joe Biden running. And they're not running necessarily. Some are, and they're concerned about down ballot races, but here's the way that the Democrats can show that they're unified, can work together. And so far, they're kind of blowing it. And that worries me because the Republicans, this is breaking news from Axios. The Republicans want to make this a campaign issue that's not going to go away because they're going to have congressional hearings now. The House Oversight Committee, according to Axios, has subpoenaed 3 senior White House aides today, demanding they sit for depositions regarding President Biden's health, according to letters obtained by Axios' Alex Thompson. This is a big deal because now that the Republicans see that, what's a bigger issue with some people than Donald Trump's 34 convictions and Donald Trump's malfeasance legally, his actions of malfeasance as a sitting president, this Biden age thing. And so House Oversight Chair James Comer, Republican Kentucky, has subpoenaed Deputy Chief of Staff Annie Tomasini, Senior Advisor Ashley Williams, and First Lady Jill Biden's top aide, Anthony Bernal. And they're going to find out a lot of stuff out there. Actually, what all they're going to do is just keep this issue, no matter what the Democrats do. If the Democrats are in line, if they're all united, the Republicans are going to make sure this remains an issue. And this is serious, folks, because this is going to be a greater issue covered by the media than all the Trump cases that have been waylaid by the Supreme Court, by a reluctant judge appointed by Trump in Florida, by everything, by the Supreme Court primarily, right? The January 6th case. And so I don't know what the October surprise is going to be this year, because we have July surprises and we have all these little side things. Biden's age is now more of a thing and recognized as a legitimate thing. And the Congress, the House Oversight Committee, is going to make sure by subpoenaing top Biden staffers, they're going to get to the bottom of the age thing. It wasn't going to be easy. It wasn't going to be easy, 2024. It's not. So I'm a little concerned because of the goings on this morning, just between Pelosi and Clooney. And, you know, Clooney is going to make sense to other actors who have money, other big donors. Biden's going out to Hollywood. I saw he's making another big trip. So maybe fundraising isn't happening as much. Maybe it's drying up a bit. He had a huge lead over Trump. But when Clooney says what he said in that New York Times op-ed, and Pelosi saying what she says, it may embolden other people to come out and say publicly what they're only saying in private. Those who are just muttering under their breath on Monday as they left that big meeting of Democrats in the caucus. The Black Caucus is together. The Black and maybe the Black Caucus that keeps Biden strong. But if you start seeing anything different from his allies from South Carolina, Clyburn, it may be time for that intervention. An intervention. Although I like feisty Biden. I like him standing up for all the people who are aging. He's got a shot. He's president. He's at the top. That's why it's going to be up to him. Now, a lot of people say, and I said this in my previous column, don't make a decision for yourself or for the party or for just winning. Make it for the good of the country. Are you the best person for the good of our nation? And Biden still thinks he can do it. And some younger Democrats are saying, hey, this is a suicide mission. I don't like it. But I think Biden deserves the respect for being the guy who has turned us around after 4 years of Trump. He saved us once. George Clooney says, you got to save us in 2024. But that way is not by staying in, but by stepping out. Don't necessarily agree there, because even Pelosi admits it's going to have to be Biden's choice, and only, I think, an intervention from all his top people to convince him. If the data is there, if the polling data is significantly lower, it's unclear. But if it's significantly lower, Biden, it's his call. It's his call. I'm not predicting. I don't have a crystal ball. I just know that as soon as there's a sign that says we could lose, we could lose big. Maybe that's what it takes. I don't think we're there yet. But then again, as I said, it's going to have to be Biden. Biden to make the decision. All right, so every year there's this Asian American voter survey that comes out. And I really like it because it talks about how Asian Americans are there's a significant double-digit increase in voter turnout in 2020. They're the highest midterm turnout in 2018. There is, in 2020, 60%, that's 7.6 million of the Asian American citizen age voting population turned out. And we're key in all the battleground states: Arizona, Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania. So it's important. It's important that people look at us. We have an Asian American flavored podcast or show here, Emil, Amok's Takeout. So here's what the Asian American voter survey found. And I'll talk about the key things. 42% of Asian American voters identify as Democrats, compared to 44% in 2020. 22% identify as Republicans. So that's about the same. 31% say they're independent, and there's a slight rise compared to 25% in 2020. So we're still primarily Democrat, right? 90% of Asian Americans say they're excited. They're going to vote for president, Congress, and other offices this November, versus 93%. So there's, some similarity there, close enough, 3 points. A smaller percent of young voters age 18 to 34 indicate they're planning to vote. 85% compared to older voters, with only 62% saying they're absolutely certain they're going to vote in November. So that's not good, that the young Asian Americans are kind of getting turned off. Over half of Asian American voters, 51%, view Joe Biden very or somewhat favorably, versus just a third, 34%, say the same thing for Donald Trump. Nearly 1 in 4, 23%, would either vote for a third-party candidate and are undecided or refuse to answer. So, this is why there's some drop-off in the Asian American enthusiasm, because it's coming from the drop-off with Biden support. Here's what Asian Americans think is important. Jobs in the economy, 86%. Inflation, 85%. Healthcare, 85%. Crime, 80%. Education, 80%. Social Security and Medicare, 79%. Cost of housing, 78%. So that's all kind of in the wheelhouse of, what the mainstream think, right? Asian American voters believe that the Democratic Party is doing better on issues of abortion and reproductive rights. Let's see. I'm just skimming through all this. 2/3 of majority of Asian American voters, 66%, support making it easier for immigrants to sponsor family members for visas. On hate crimes, over 2/3 of Asian American voters, 68%, reported worrying about hate crimes, harassment, and discrimination. Sometimes, 38%, somewhat often, 17%, and very often, 13%. So 68%, over 2/3, had it on their minds. Let's see. I'll go over most of this stuff a little later when I look at the key issues. Gun control. Over 3 in 4 Asian American voters, 77%, agree with gun control. And over 2/3 of Asian American voters, 69%, agree that Congress and the president should pass stronger legislation to reduce the effects of climate change. All right, so now the big specific, in terms of the presidential election. The question, if the election were being held today, would you be inclined to vote for Joe Biden or Donald Trump? 46% of Asian Americans said they'd be inclined to vote for Biden, 33% for Trump. 18% don't know, and 5% said someone else. The biggest Biden supporters are Chinese, Japanese at 50%. Oh, Chinese at 54%, Japanese at 50%, Korean at 49%, Indian at 46%, Vietnamese 40%, Filipino 40%. The biggest Trump supporters, Filipino and Vietnamese. I've always felt that, but that holds true with this Asian American voter survey. 29% of Indians are Trumpy, 27% Korean, 30% Japanese, 27% Chinese. So the Trumpiest are Filipino and, well, actually Vietnamese at 38%, Filipino at 33%. They're the Trumpiest. So that should be no surprise, right? Who are the most for Biden? I said Chinese, right? So, I mean, the thing about the Asian American voter surveys, it just shows you differences in our ethnicity, because you never get this kind of ethnic breakdown when you barely get a sample size that you can rely on. But this is based on 2490 something voters, registered voters, and they have a pretty good sample size, so you can say with some certainty. Versus you go to some samples in mainstream polls, there's never enough Asians. If you don't see Asians mentioned, they don't have a reliable sample of Asians. So the Asian American Voter Survey is important, and what it tells us, Asians are going for Biden, although not as much as they did in 2020. And that's kind of in keeping with where people of color are, right? Black voters dropping off, Hispanic voters dropping off. But in the end, I mean, that's now. But in the end, I don't know. I think you're going to see people saying, time to go back. Time to go back to the Democrats. But you see how crazy it is if the candidate isn't Biden. Then what? Kamala Harris? The Kamala Harris numbers are pretty decent. But I think right now, the key thing should be looking at what happens in the battleground states. Still too early. Right now, Biden's hanging in there. And I just think that you have to worry about a candidate who is so stage managed that he is unable to speak off the cuff or unable to spring into action. Like I said, not that should be a thing, but people are expecting that, and that could hurt Biden. And that's why the only thing that really makes sense is if Biden owns up to his age, and he has, but he's got to do it more so. Yeah, I'm not as good a debater as I was. My voice isn't as great. I don't move as well. He's got to have that self-awareness. And then, I think he's trying to balance that with the defiance. Like, I'm running. I'm the guy. I can do it. He needs a little more humility and a little more acceptance that as he ages, he's different, but not different enough to give up the job. How do you say that and relieve the anxiety that exists out there? That, if he can do that, then he might be able to hang on. But it's an unfair standard right now because people are on Biden flub watch. And any flub, anything. I mean, I point out in my column that when Pelosi talked today, she loved the word. And ordinarily, we just let that go. If Biden can prove that in his current condition, America doesn't lose a step, it's a tough one. But he's got to go out there and say, hey, why is everyone going ageist on me? I have the wisdom, I have the experience. Let's go get him. Let's win. I mean, he's doing that a little bit. But people, I think, they want the best guy out there. But they forgot who got him here. Joe Biden got him here. As I said yesterday, hey, dance with the one who brung you. Time not to abandon Biden. Unless Biden says so. Okay, that's it for today. Back in tomorrow, 2 p.m. Pacific Live. See what's in the news. See where we are in our anxiety level. Biden's talking to NATO. And notice, he had the Secretary of State out there, Tony Blinken, which is smart because Blinken's a young guy. Biden did speak give a very short speech, but it was mostly Blinken who was doing the heavy lifting. And I think we're talking about a Biden as figurehead president, pretty much, with the wisdom and experience, who guides and manages his younger charges who go out there, his cabinet, Secretary of State. He directs those people. That's still better than a rampaging Donald Trump. So I'm not predicting. I'm no longer predicting. I'm just saying I'm taking Nancy stance. I'm not saying step aside, Joe. I'm not freaking out that Joe's a loser. He's not a loser. I'm saying if all the tools in the political prognostication game shows positive signs for Joe Biden staying in, then he should stay in. That's his feeling. We should respect that feeling. Okay, that's it. Hey, thanks for joining me here Monday through Friday, like I said, 2 o'clock Pacific. YouTube.com/AdamElamuk1. Adam Elamuk on Twitter, X, formerly known as Twitter. FB.com. My name, Emil Guillermo, or Emil Guillermo Media. We like to close with a little loving kindness meditation. And so, as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. Emil Guillermo here. Till next time. Mahal